The weather affects everything, from how we feel to how we live. But what's really going on above us? Each week on Atmospheric Insight, we dig deeper into the science of weather and the stories it shapes. This is Atmospheric Insight, where science meets the sky.
Welcome back to another episode of Atmospheric Insight. I'm your host, meteorologist Adam Epstein, joined by meteorologist Riley O'Connor. Riley, hello.
Hello.
We've got another episode full of science and weather and ways that weather impacts you that you don't expect. And I'm excited for it.
Absolutely.
All right, first part is always going to be atmospheric impacts, where we take a look at something that's happening locally or around the nation that may impact us here at home. And for this one, we're getting towards the end of our water year, which is starting October 1st, always ends September 30th. So I figured it'd be a good time to take a look back and review, see how the numbers are doing. So let's start off with our water year chart. Okay, Riley, first of all, again, I want to welcome you to Sacramento. Okay?
Thanks.
We do things a little differently out here. For anyone who's not used to this, or maybe he's just moved here recently, our water year begins on October 1st and then goes through September 30th. It's not a calendar year. And the reason for that is we have a very clear wet season, and that's during the winter. So using these data points instead of a calendar year makes it easier for us to assess the data and see how we're doing, and not just January through December, but instead from when it starts raining generally, which is October 1st. So this map starts, or graph starts, October 1st. The blue line is your record highest. The green is this year. The red line is the record lowest. And then the brown line is the normal. So what's interesting about this is we kept pretty good track with what's considered normal until we got into late winter, springtime, and then we started to fall off. So you got here during a time where we don't expect much rain, and you haven't really seen much either.
So since I am new, I was looking back. So thinking with you, because you've been here for how many years again?
7 years now,
7 years. And when you look at the late spring or early summer, that time frame, in the past years, what has been so different compared to this year? I mean, have we been slammed with storms that you want to talk about during that time period?
Yeah, it really comes down to the winter months. That's like our make or break, right? Because that's when we tend to get atmospheric rivers. And individual atmospheric rivers make our water year. We either get enough or we don't. And that's simply it. For this year, things slowed down towards the end of winter, and we had a decent amount of rain. We were around 12, 13 inches of rain. And ideally, we get to 18, right? That's our goal. That's what's considered normal. But if we get 13, 14 inches of rain, that's certainly not the end of the world. If we get a year like 1976, 77, then that is worrisome,
right?
Because we have to fill our reservoirs. We depend on that very much. We live in an area that traditionally is like not for people, especially in Southern California. I mean, we're defying what Mother Nature has just set out on her own. We're living in the desert there. So we have to support them with water. And here in Northern California, we live in a floodplain too, which is also like a little side note, interesting. We shouldn't be here either if it wasn't for modern engineering to keep flooding away.
Right.
But there are some years where you just don't get rain. And that's why people are like, oh, we could live in the floodplain because it's dry sometimes. And that's where we're at right now. But a year like 1982, 83, right?
Impressive.
That's insane to imagine. And I'm sure there are some people watching this that watch our newscasts that lived through that. It wasn't that long ago. But hopefully one day, one winter, we see some like strong atmospheric rivers that gets us above normal. But I think 33.69 inches of rain would probably cause more problems than good.
A lot. I feel like it would be a lot of flooding.
Yes.
Right? It is interesting talking with Californians because, not a lot, I would say not a lot, but many people that I've talked to and just asked really aren't, they are like, oh, it's going to rain. I don't want any rain. I'm not ready for the rain. Do you not like the rain? Do you not like to drive in the rain? Like, what's the reason why?
That's
they don't like to drive in the rain.
Yeah, it's fascinating you bring that up because I'm from the Northeast and I generally dislike the rain, right? I liked clear, sunny, warm days because they were few and far between. You really appreciated the summer. Now here, it's flipped. Most people seem to enjoy the rain. And turned into one of them. I transitioned into a person that really likes the rain.
Yeah.
So when it happens, I'm rooting for it. And when we look at a water year this year, yeah, it's Sacramento, Stockton, Modesto, a little bit farther behind normal. But the farther north you go throughout the state, the better it got. And again, this comes down to atmospheric rivers. Miss us by a few miles, but someone else gets it. In this case, Redding was an area that saw a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of rain. They got 37 inches of rain, which is only about 3.5 inches above normal. So they can handle that. That's what's considered the norm for them. Have you've been to Redding, right?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
I've driven through it many times. In fact, I still have my family that lives up in the Redding area too, but I lived in Portland, so we would come down back and forth to California all the time. It's such a difference. If you look at that, the numbers, I mean, we're not that far from them, but you look at just how things set up, like you mentioned, atmospheric rivers,
Yep.
and it's a big difference.
Right, a
Big
few
change.
miles, right? And a huge difference in the amount of inches of rain you get. The last thing I wanted to show you briefly is our drought monitor. And in the desert Southwest, mainly Arizona, yeah, you see those reds. That's not good. You don't want that. But Southern California, that's kind of how you expect it to look this time of the year because during summer, we don't expect rain, it dries out. The water that we had in Northern California supplies us with enough to get through this dry period. Then hopefully it comes back pretty soon, October, November, and by December, we should be getting consistent rainfall. But also look at the top right of the map, Riley. This is a place I used to live in, Maine.
Mm-hmm.
There, it's interesting because they do have some severe and extreme drought.
Yeah.
But the chief meteorologist I work for there, he never worried about it
Mhm.
because he says eventually it's going to rain.
Yeah.
And he is so right about that. But in California, you can't say that because it could be years, really. We
Right.
have multi year, possibly decadal droughts, and you're in a deficit after deficit after deficit. So on the Northeast, yeah, you see some colors, not as big of a deal for them as it is for us. So welcome to California.
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
just glad I'm not seeing a lot of exceptional on the map because those years, they're scary.
yes, they are. All right, and now we're going to talk about something that's kind of related to rain. It's clouds. And we're going to talk about the 10 major clouds in this week's edition of Ask Adam.
Welcome to another installment of Ask Adam. This week's question comes from Rob Dufresne. And Rob asks, what are the different cloud types and how do they form? Well, there are 10 main cloud types and subsections of each, which we'll get into at a later time. And these clouds are either high, mid, or low level in our atmosphere, and there are a couple of clouds that go into both of those categories. And these cloud types are classified and organized by Latin words. And let's go into this little Latin lesson, which can help you memorize what you're looking at. And if you already know Latin, this is going to be easy for you. Cirro means curl, cumulo means heap, strato means layer, nimbo, rain, so anything with nimbo in it means it produces rain. Alto means high. And speaking of alto, let's start with those high clouds. Three main types we'll be talking about: cirrus, cirrocumulus, and cirrostratus. Now, I'm willing to bet you know these clouds, cirrus clouds. They look like horsetails, wispy in the sky. Fun fact about them is that they're 100% ice crystals, high enough in the atmosphere that water can't make it there, so it all freezes. And these have that term cirro in them. That means curl, and you see in this picture here, they have those curls in them. There's also cirrocumulus, cirro, curl, cumulo, heap. These are thin patches with a grain of rice appearance. Some people describe them as mackerel sky, and seeing these during a sunset is one of nature's beauties. Here's an example of that. It reflects a lot of color and makes some beautiful gradients up in the sky. Now you also have cirrostratus, which has its own unique features. These are clouds that are like a blanket high in the troposphere, and they appear hazy around the sun. Creates a sun halo from the ice crystals refracting that light. Again, these are high enough that this is all ice crystals, so if you ever noticed it looks like a rainbow around the sun, that's because of cirrostratus clouds. Now we're getting on to the middle level: altocumulus, altostratus, and nimbostratus. There's that nimbo, so we're going to be talking about rain here. First, altocumulus. These are mid-level cumulus clouds. They vary in appearance and have a lot of different subtypes. They usually look like smaller cumulus clouds since they are farther away from us. Next up is the most boring cloud. Call this one altostratus. They're gray, they're gloomy, not much definition to them, and they don't look too pretty. The sun is usually dimly visible when you see these. And then you have nimbostratus. These are also featureless. They're dark, but they can produce rain. They're one of the two cloud types that can produce a consistent type of precipitation. Now, low-level clouds. Here we get into cumulonimbus, cumulus, stratus, and stratocumulus. Cumulonimbus is something you might know as well. These are the thunderstorm clouds. They stretch all the way up to the top of the troposphere, so they span all 3 layers that we've been talking about, and they can feature an anvil shape on top, and there's a very cool reason why. 100% of the weather that we talk about that affects us on a daily basis occurs in the lowermost layer of the atmosphere, the troposphere. I mentioned this cloud stretches to the top of the troposphere. It hits what's called the tropopause. Once you get to the stratosphere, that's what's considered a stable layer of our atmosphere. Air can't rise. So it hits an invisible ceiling and flattens out and creates that anvil effect that we've been talking about. Now, cumulus clouds are the most well-known cloud. Whether you realize it or not, you've probably drawn one before. They have flat bottoms and some puffy tops. They look like cotton balls, and these are some of the most aesthetic clouds we have in our sky. Now, on the opposite end of that, we have stratus clouds, which are gray, gloomy clouds. They tend to be featureless, create overcast conditions, and if these clouds were in contact with the ground, that's what we would consider fog. And then we have stratocumulus clouds. Remember, strato means layer, cumulo means heap. These are a layer of low, puffy clouds that can join up in the sky. The difference between stratocumulus and cumulus is stratocumulus clouds are wider than they are tall, but cumulus clouds are taller than they are wide, so they have a different look to them. That covers the 10 made cloud types, and I love talking about clouds. So next week, I'm going to show you my top 3 favorite clouds of all times, and you haven't seen them yet. Thank you, Rob, for this great question. Stay curious.
Looking forward to next week, Riley. Do you have a favorite cloud, by the way?
I do. Mamatis.
Oh, Mattis. We're going to be talking about that next week.
Perfect.
We share that. We have that one in common.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you for joining us for Ask Adam. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Welcome back. I'm meteorologist Adam Epstein. We were just talking about clouds and how even when we fly through planes, Riley, you and I just love looking out the window, trying to see what's causing that turbulence, right?
Exactly. I'm one that does. People are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm a meteorologist. I love this stuff.
Right. And it's just fascinating to know, like, if you were to fall through a cloud, a little fun fact, it would be freezing cold and you would come out drenched.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, probably not as fun as you imagine it to be.
All right, our next segment for Everyday Atmosphere, since it's new season, fall is here. We want to talk to some people about their fun fall traditions and what's on their bucket list for this season.
All right, let's see it.
Fall has officially arrived and it's time to celebrate the new season. Whether it be watching football, drinking pumpkin lattes, or putting on the cozy sweater, it's time to find out and talk with people about what their favorite fall tradition is and what's on their bucket list.
Hey everyone, it's Dennis, and one of my favorite fall traditions is always the start of Kings basketball. But my very favorite fall tradition is going to Apple Hill with my mom. My dad started this tradition many years ago, may he rest in peace. And still to this day, every year in October, my mom and I pick a day to go to Larson Apple Barn, buy our apples and pears, and have a picnic under the trees. The weather's usually perfect for this in October, but one year it did snow on us.
Favorite fall tradition is going to a local pumpkin farm and picking out pumpkins and then carving them and putting them out. Or we also like to get the full-size candy bars for Halloween, so we're that home. We're the family that's giving out the full-size candy bars.
A fall tradition that I really enjoy doing is spending time with my little brother and carving pumpkins together. Every year we do something different, and he has a lot of fun scooping out the insides of the pumpkin, which he calls the brains.
Hey guys, my name is Riley, and my favorite fall memory, I'm a little basic. I like to go to Apple Hill every year, pick the apples, do the whole 9.
Hey guys, it's John. One of the things I love about fall, after all the heat of the summer, the lakes finally start to turn over, and it's good fishing season for those of us who don't have a boat and like to fish from the shore.
Hello guys, my name is Adderall Ayub, and one of my favorite things to do in the fall is to watch all the Disney Halloween movies. And this year on my bucket list is to take my family and my friends and my loved ones to go out to Old Sacramento to watch the movie Under the Stars.
Trout have been staying down in those cold part of the lakes all summer long, but now they finally start to come up for some of that food near the shore and the streams letting in. So that's what I'll be doing all fall long, is hitting the lakes up in the Sierra.
My bucket list item actually has to do with Apple Hill. So last year was my first year making apple pies. I got the corer, I got the spiralizer, the whole 9. and not one of them turned out very well, or even edible, frankly. So this year, my bucket list is to perfect the apple pie, go to Apple Hill, get the freshest apples, and then hopefully I'll have something delicious and edible enough to bring into work and share with all my coworkers.
I have 2 bucket list items that I want to do in the fall, both involving my little brother. One day I want to take him to a pumpkin patch where he can see a really huge pumpkin. I want to see his reaction to that. And the other thing is that I want to take him trick-or-treating and show him a really crazy haunted house.
I've always wanted to make my own like homemade apple cider, you know, like spice cider from scratch with like apples and spices and all that jazz. So, okay, maybe this is the year I'm gonna do it, but every year this is what I wanna do.
Just once, I would love to be able to go snowboarding in October, but nature would really need to surprise us for that to happen.
Of course, Dennis would say that.
You would.
The more you learn about Dennis, the more you'll know that he loves getting up into the Sierra during the
Uh-huh.
snow season and getting snowboarding in. But it is cool that, he talked about getting some snow at Apple Hill one year.
Mhm.
That is not common. And Apple Hill is another staple. You've been to Leatherby's, right?
Yep.
You did a package story on that.
Yes.
Now Apple Hill is another staple of Sacramento area.
I've heard about it, and we've, I've talked with the coworkers and the colleagues about it and stuff, and they just said it's an absolute must to go to. So I think, this is going to be a year that I want to take the kiddos up there and do that. That's one of my favorite things that I love to do is hitting up apple orchards. It's just the experience. It's just not picking apples, but they have the hay ride.
Yeah.
You have fun stuff to do, fun fall traditions. So I think that that's just really cool. And of course, the pumpkin patches, which I know there are many to go to around here.
Yeah, and I want to ask you, Riley, do you have any fall traditions with your family, things that you definitely want to do?
Yeah, we do. So typically, it's always when fall hits, we start like getting the house decorated. So
Mhm.
getting the fall stuff out, the scarecrows, the mums, that sort of thing, just to make it look fall foliage. Now, even though the kids, I always try to hold off until October 1st to start putting out the Halloween stuff.
Fair,
But they
yeah.
kind of they start sneaking out. The kids will start sneaking out little decorations. But it's really all about like you know it's cooking. So I
Mm.
really love to get into the fall food tradition. So anything fall related, I love to cook. Something that's always warm to put it in the oven, make the house smell good. Now, since it's warm out here in the 90s,
I
you know,
know, right? Hasn't really felt like fall yet.
not yet, but that's just something that I love to do.
All right, and I guess with the cooking, are you using pumpkin? Is that a main ingredient here?
Not everything. I mean, I
No?
definitely love to incorporate it, but it's cooking, just things that will just warm up the house too, like lasagna,
Ah,
um,
so good.
pumpkin bread. We'll do pumpkin bread. We'll say that. Lasagna soup's another one of my favorites. Stews, chili.
Mm.
Like always, chili is
Mm.
amazing, and I love going to tailgate parties. So football kind of incorporates that fall time, being with friends on the weekends and doing a tailgate party too.
Yeah, that all sounds great to me. No objections from my side here. And then we heard some other great traditions like carving pumpkins,
Yep.
right? And just it seems like being with people, whether it's cooking and for people or with people,
Yep.
going to these patches with people, right? That's a nice feature of fall.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think I'm ready for snow yet,
Yeah.
so but
No,
we'll let
I'm
Dennis
happy to hold
experience
off
that one.
too. I know Dennis is the outlier on that one. All right, we're gonna be back in 2 minutes. We're gonna hear from Genevieve Melzer, and she's gonna take us to a chiropractor and let us know how that has a connection to weather.
And welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. Genevieve actually did a really cool package that I'm interested in watching. She met with a chiropractor, talking about how weather is related to injuries and things like that, more on the medical side. So this is going to be interesting to see. So I'm ready to watch this.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet either, so we're all watching it for the first time. I'm
Yeah,
excited to see what she comes up with. I know there are some people that complain that, like, when storms are here, their
yeah,
joints hurt. So
right.
I wonder if that's related to this too.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Today we're sitting down with Dr. Charmaine McGalley of Active Life Team Chiropractic because she is the chiropractor for the Sac Republic FC. So we're gonna find out how weather impacts her players and if she has to adjust them differently in Sacramento's blazing hot summers. Let's go. What is it like at a game? Do you adjust the players before or during the games?
Adjustments before the game is really focused around performance as opposed to treating injury. So if we can focus on mobility in their spine and their hips, obviously as they're sprinting down the field, It can help with performance. Also can help with reducing injuries to the body as well.
With such a long season running March through October, do you work with the team differently in preseason than in midseason?
That's a good question. Preseason, yeah, I mean, there's definitely more demands in the midseason. Preseason, you know, they're sort of coming fresh off the break, so they may not need as much during the midseason. I mean, that's really when injuries really start to settle in. Their bodies, obviously, from high demands of more, you know, travel, more games, you know, their treatment could be a little bit, you know, more.
Does the local weather impact Sac Republic FC's training or game day schedule?
In Sacramento, for us, like, we constantly have to look at the temperatures, both for training and for game day. So we have to prep for extra, you know, hydration, extra, you know, during a game, if there's a wet bulb temperature, right? If that hits a certain amount, they get hydration breaks. In between the breaks that they have, like halftime, there is a hydration break at the 30-minute and then a hydration break at the 75-minute. And the boys come off, and we could do cold towels, we could do extra. So there has to be certain adjustments for sure. And the training times get adjusted. Game times actually get adjusted as well. So our usual kickoff is 7, but on game days that are in June, July, they kick off at 8 o'clock. So it gives them an extra hour to cool down.
How does hot Sacramento summer weather affect players' muscles and joints during games?
We really have to watch for dehydration because obviously with higher temperatures, the boys sweat more. So, you know, they lose in their sweat, they lose a lot of salts, they lose a lot of electrolytes. So cramping is a big issue. And so, you know, a lot of times they'll get more hydration breaks where we give them electrolyte drinks, obviously more water. We also give like towels, cold towels to cool down their internal body temperatures.
How does dehydration or heat exhaustion show up in the body, and does it change the way you treat players?
Yeah, definitely, you know, it shows up in cramping more, shows up in, you know, obviously they need to intake their fluids like electrolytes and hydration. So in terms of treatment frequencies or style, yeah, like they probably need more tissue work because there's a lot more toxins that can sit in the body. So we like to flush those out so that the tissue work changes a little bit.
What's one piece of advice you give athletes for keeping their bodies resilient no matter the weather?
Recovery is just as important as training for the sport itself. I don't think there's enough emphasis in clubs or athletics, whether it be college or high school or even on the importance of recovery sessions. You know, and there's so much emphasis on the training itself for the sport, the hours of training, but recovery, like what you do off the court, off the field, if it's sleep, if it's ice baths, if it's massage, if it's chiropractic, if it's mobility work, or, you know, even weights and stuff, that is like, I would say this is not popular opinion, but maybe more important than training for the sport itself, because it's prepping your body to get ready for the training and the sport.
Well, you heard it from Dr. McGalley. Recovery is so important. Huge thanks to Dr. McGalley and her team for having us out today. And now I want to send it back to you two in the studio.
Thank you so much, Genevieve Melzer, for that report there. Heard a lot of interesting insight about what it takes to be a professional athlete there.
Yeah.
Hydration, certainly important here in
Right.
the summer in Sacramento. And that makes sense,
Yep.
right? They look at the temperatures more so than the chance of rain because
Right.
you know, their season over the summer, that's what's more important.
Right. And you know what? I think about this too. The athletes just going out there and how hot it is and with the gear on and running around. I mean, there's a lot of prep into, staying hydrated, like she mentioned, and being cool. And, if you cramp up and trying to avoid that stuff. So there's a lot of things that, are weather related into people who are doing physical activity.
Right. And we were talking about this before her story that like there are some people that can tell when rain is coming, right? Can tell when rain is coming based on how their joints feel,
Yeah.
right? And you know one of these people.
I do, my
Yeah.
mom. And this was the fun. I'm gonna share this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think she was just trying to get out of doing a task to help me out here. But we had just moved to Sacramento, right? And her leg was hurting, and she was like, "Oh, I think it's gonna rain. My leg's hurting." And I was like, "No, don't think so, Mom. I
Yeah.
just don't think you want to help do this."
We're in the middle of summer and probably not a cloud in
I got a kick.
sight.
Yeah, I got a kick out of it.
Yeah, I think there is some merit to it.
Uh-huh.
I remember reading a little bit about it because at first I thought this was completely bogus.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's some people that are highly sensitive to
Mhm.
low pressure, and low
Mhm.
pressure tends to correlate with rain.
Yeah.
So there might be some merit to that. If you're watching this, you're like, I can tell. I would say maybe.
Mhm.
I would say maybe. Probably not all the time, but maybe, right? Have you ever
Yeah.
felt anything like that?
I don't think so. I think the biggest thing that I notice is when it does get colder outside, it's or maybe it's just because I'm getting older, Adam.
Could
I don't
be.
know.
It could be.
It's harder
We're
to
getting
move.
up there.
It's
Yeah.
harder to move in the mornings when I first get up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, morning stiffness of like just rolling
Yeah,
out of bed. Yeah, sure.
but
I get you on that.
when it's colder for sure,
It could be. I
right?
mean, just all,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
tightened up from being
yeah.
cold. I get
I
that.
think I
It's
need to go
probably a
see a
common experience.
chiropractor.
I know one for you.
Yeah,
Know
get
where you
perfect.
go.
All right.
All right, Riley, thank you so much. And Genevieve, thank you for your report. We'll be back here next week for another episode of Atmospheric Insight.